One of the issues that it addressed was women in power and decision-making. Part of the Declaration states that the advancement of women, with its achievement of equality between women and men, is a matter of human rights and a condition for social justice, and should not be seen in isolation as a women's issue. They are the only way to build a sustainable, just, and developed society. Empowerment of women and equality between women and men are prerequisites for achieving political, social, economic, cultural, and environmental security among all peoples. The Declaration also notes, that achieving the goal of equal participation of women and men in decision-making will provide a balance that more accurately reflects the composition of society and is needed in order to strengthen democracy and promote its proper functioning. Now, 2.5 decades later, statistics show that our societies fall well short of the goal. This event is one of our efforts to move the process along. It is being held to observe International Women's Day, which has been celebrated for over 100 years in countries around the world. Its purpose is not only to celebrate the achievements of women in all areas of work and home life, as well as public service, but to shine a light on the continuing gender inequities today. So tonight, we are both celebrating women in politics and noting the imbalance of male-female representation at all levels of government. Our guests tonight are 4 women who have agreed to share their stories and perspectives about their lives in the political arena, including how they arrived at their present position and the challenges and rewards of that journey. We live in very challenging times. We all have something to learn from tonight's panelists, and we all benefit when there is more balanced representation in decision-making. So now let's meet the panelists who will be sharing with us tonight, and also our moderator. I'll introduce them alphabetically by first name, beginning with Delvire. Delvire Nahal, who is a Senior Quality Assurance Specialist with the BC Government, is serving her 2nd term as City Councillor. She has been very active in promoting, supporting, and fundraising for many charities. She established the popular Bollywood Bang Vernon events to bring together people of diverse cultural backgrounds, which have been the model for other communities as well. Delvire has received several awards for her work in multiculturalism, anti-racism, and the community, as well as being nominated as Woman of the Year. Her most recent award is as the Multicultural Champion for the Social Planning Council. Delvire's colleague on City Council, Carrie Garris, also joins us tonight. Carrie was elected to City Council in 2018. She owns a mortgage brokerage and 2 other businesses. She has received awards for her work in this field, and in 2020 was one of the Greater Vernon Chamber of Commerce's top 20 over 40. Carrie is active in supporting youth sports and the Starfish Backpack campaign. She has also taught financial literacy for adulthood to high school students. Her volunteer work also includes the areas of domestic violence, affordable housing, and sports. Representing us at the provincial level is Harwinder Sandhu. Harwinder, a member of the BC NDP, was elected the MLA for Vernon Monashee in 2020. Prior to being elected, Harwinder was a registered nurse at Vernon Jubilee Hospital and worked as a patient care coordinator. She also served in the BC Nurses Union. In the legislature, she is a member of the Special Committee on Reforming the Police Act, which was formed in December 2020. She is also a member of the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services, which is one of 10 permanent committees of the legislature. Her volunteer work includes affordable housing, poverty relief, and homelessness. Our 4th panelist is Teresa Durning Harker, who, while not holding an elected position, will give us a look into the federal level of politics and the support an elected official requires to do their job. Teresa is a lifelong learner and avid community volunteer who shares her skills in media relations with several organizations. Teresa's professional background includes a career with Interior Health, property management with Kicking Horse Mountain Resort, and tourism visitor service management with Tourism Vernon. Her interest in politics has evolved over the past 10 years, bringing her to her latest professional career position with the House of Commons, serving as the constituency assistant for Mel Arnold, our Member of Parliament for the North Okanagan-Shuswap riding. Our moderator for tonight's panel presentation is Maddie Keating. She grew up in a political family, so our topic tonight is one that she has been immersed in. Maddie has a BA in Health Sciences from SFU and is presently pursuing a Doctor of Law degree at Thompson Rivers University. She volunteers with the Red Cross as an emergency response team member and also was a health sciences peer monitor while at SFU. Her work experience has included the position of project assistant at the Kindale Developmental Association. Tonight, Maddie is using her Toastmaster skills to act as our moderator. And as we are all eager to hear what our panel has to tell us, I'll turn over the mic now to Maddie, who will lead the presentation. Maddie?
Thank you so much, Bev. Those were wonderful introductions, and I'm sure everyone was very happy with those. I'm going to go in reverse order now and ask Teresa to please give her own introduction.
Good evening. Thank you for that, Maddie. During a medical incident, I was asked, do you want to be resuscitated? Shocking question. Yes, but my response speaks volumes about how I feel about my life. Because without a blink, I looked my doctor right in the eye and said, absolutely, I have a most wonderful life. Honored guests, distinguished presenters. Coming from a long line of brilliant, true grit, hardworking women, better described as survivors, it is a pleasure to be here to share my perspective about my journey and my work. I am the first generation to ever go to post-secondary, work outside the home, or be involved in politics. I am deeply committed to my community, my friends, and my family, and I feel a need to have a voice, advocate for the people that are unable to advocate for themselves, and do my part to make the world a better place. A voice in the world of politics gives me the opportunity to do just that. Hannah Gale was elected to Calgary City Council in 1917, becoming the first woman ever elected to any municipal office in Canada. And despite the push to get more women into politics, gender parity remains elusive in city and town councils across Canada. Sadly, women represent only 35% of legislatures in all of Canada. The need to be part of the solution is my motivation for an amazing run for Municipal Council in 2018 and in my current role as a constituency assistant for the House of Commons. The love for my community is real. Each day I go to work and know that I will make a positive contribution that could potentially change somebody's life. Currently, my #1 goal is to learn all there is to know about Canadian politics and ultimately how it impacts the Canadian people, specifically in this riding of the North Okanagan-Shuswap. At the office, we are nonpartisan, meaning we unbiasedly assist all that contact us with the same outstanding service. With over 124,000 constituents and an MP that serves in 2 time zones with 4 staff, 2 in Ottawa and 2 here, there is never a boring moment. Understanding what is happening daily at a federal level really assists me in supporting the people that contact us. Often when there is legislation or policy change, it can impact the constituency in a negative way. It is my job to be educated and aware of the continually changing political environment. As federal provincial programs are changing as we speak here tonight. Often our office is faced with complex issues that the constituents are struggling to navigate on their own. Unless stakeholders have retained legal representation, our job is to assist anybody with federal program issues. This includes Canada Revenue Agency, Immigration, Senior and Veterans Affairs, agricultural issues, and the Phoenix Pay System, just to name a few. Even though there is no involvement in the following issues, I also need to have a good understanding regarding the roles of the provincial government, local municipalities, and First Nation bands in the riding, as many people might need support in getting in the right direction. I am fortunate to be able to learn with the mentorship of MP Arnold and the rest of the House of Commons team. We also work together on a variety of other projects, including outreach initiatives, meetings with individuals and organizations within the riding in order for MP Arnold to advocate in Ottawa for the people he serves. The learning I do daily is best described as a tap that never turns off. Preparation provided me the opportunity to reflect on what contributed to me getting where I am today, and to dig deep into the history and work of others that opened the doors to my success. The role of women in politics is a tough one, regardless of what their title is. In closing, I would like to say that I am forever grateful and indebted to many strong women that have mentored and supported me in the past. Every day, I'm thankful to be surrounded by a strong tribe of friends that pick me up when I am down and cheer me on when I am succeeding. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for your wonderful and inspiring background. That's really great to hear. And of course, we all appreciate being some of those constituents within your riding. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of an introduction into your role as a constituency assistant as well. I'm now going to move on to Councillor Carrie Garris, if possible, for another introduction.
Well, first off, I just wanted to thank everybody for bringing us all here together so that we can talk about women in politics and obviously the journey that all of us have gone on. And I just wanted to also say to my fellow panelists how proud I am and honored to be here sitting with some powerfully just incredible women that really, are just, Teresa said it best. We cheer each other on, we lift each other up, and we are forging paths. So again, I just wanted to give recognition to these wonderful ladies, and of course everybody that is sitting here today. I will start my introduction. Teresa, I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep up with yours, but I will do my best. It's been over 105 years since women were given the right to vote. 104 years since that right was extended to women here in BC. It's well over a century. The suffragist movement was integral in shaping today's political landscape. It has provided important opportunities for women to take on profound leadership roles that extend into both business and into politics. As we sit here today, it's important to understand where our journey began and where our journey has yet to go. And just to give everybody a little bit of a background, I am a history major, and part of my educational background was in Canadian politics. And I actually did a research paper on the women's suffragist movement. So it's quite interesting how we've kind of come full circle on that. My journey has not always been an easy one. It has been met with challenges and obstacles, but it's from these trials and tribulations that gave me purpose to demand more of myself and to acknowledge both my strengths and my weaknesses to shape the person that I have become today. It has also shown me the importance of uplifting women in their own journey by providing a solid foundation of peer support and understanding, all the while acknowledging our innate and unique characteristics that truly define who we are. Each one of us should share and celebrate our differences while we continue to break through those glass ceilings that are imposed on us by society. And there are a lot of glass ceilings, and I've said it before, you break one and there's many more to go, and we will continue to do so. Like so many before me, my life's journey has been a challenging one, but an ever so exciting one. I will admit that I've been fortunate to have strong support networks in both family and in close friends. And I think some of those close friends are sitting on this panel as we speak today. And I know that this cannot be said for everyone, which is why it's important for me to recognize this with others. Although my challenges are unique to my journey, and in no way do I want to overshadow the challenges of others, I found it uplifting to share in those experiences. Our strengths, our passion, our courage can be the foundation blocks in supporting other women so that they too can pursue their own dreams. You see, I grew up in a loving home. Two parents had always encouraged me to pursue my dreams. Like my mom used to say, your dreams are only limited by how much you dare to dream. Just dream. My brother and I grew up in a family that struggled financially. It seemed that the world was tossing every possible obstacle our way. I was forced to understand how finances or the lack thereof could stifle one's dream if you allowed yourself to just stop dreaming. I worked multiple jobs to put myself through university, where I studied psychology and history, and to have both of those behind me really did shape my world. And it was here that I found my voice. I learned to be open, reflective, stubbornly strong, and at times defiant. And it's okay to be defiant, to challenge those norms. You see, defiant in that I was not prepared to accept those norms, whatever you believe those norms to be. I'm a second generation politician in my family. I am the first female in my family to actually have a seat in the political realm. I'm actually also the first female in my family to graduate university. In fact, I'm the first person to graduate university in my family. I beat my brother and he's older than me. My grandfather was elected a councilman here in Vernon. So my own father grew up in a home that spoke politics, which was then passed on to myself. The one thing that I appreciate immensely is the openness of our family and how eager and willing we were able to share in things that weren't necessarily as what we would define them to be in our specific roles. In my own education, I gravitated to politics. I did not believe that I, sitting here today, would embody those same ideals that my grandfather, decades before me, had. Ideals of a better community, painstakingly pieced together by ordinary people with strong beliefs who had a vision and aptitude to do good things for those around them without having the need to receive something in return. And that's ultimately why I'm sitting here today, is when you sit and you look around your community, and you talk about the possibilities, sometimes you have to put that talk into action. And that's what really led me down the path of politics, was to say, I have a voice. It's time to use it. It's time to break forward and give voice to those ideals in hopes of seeing change, whatever that change may be. I learned that my strong sense of purpose, dedication, and overwhelming commitment to do good, mixed with the softer side that makes me genuinely who I am, has led me to this moment. A moment that saw myself face to face with a system that encouraged me to give up when I should press on. Just as a side note, I think it was my third year of university, my professor, my history professor, pulled me aside and he said, Carrie, I think you should just, at this time, I was a part-time employee with the local bank. That was my job to get me through university. I think you should take that as a career. You could do well at that. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm pursuing a double major and I'm being told to give up that dream. And I still didn't have an answer why. But what it did do is it propelled me to do what I knew I could do. I learned that my strong sense of purpose, mixed with that softer side, saw myself face to face with that system. And if I can say one thing, and one thing only, is that we must not fall to the whims of others. We must not give up when we should forge forward. We must not let one person derail us from our goal, whatever that goal may be. For me, politics and women in politics symbolizes our complete strength in an industry that has been so strategically strung together by our fellow counterparts. We are women who can and will continue to break the ceiling and raise the bar for a new generation of women to do so much more. As Nellie McClung said so proudly, women are going to form a chain, a greater sisterhood than the world has ever known. That rings true today. That was 100 years ago. And we are still that sisterhood. We are still forging that change, and we are pushing forward in an industry that obviously needs women, needs our voice, and needs that balance, because ultimately that's when we're going to see the good. That's when we're going to break those ceilings, and that's when we're going to, for our kids and our grandkids, are going to be able to do so much more than we've ever done. Thank you so very much for allowing me the opportunity to sit here, and I look forward to the rest of the evening.
Thank you so much, Councillor Garris, for such a wonderful and passionate speech. That's really great, and it's so wonderful to hear the history of suffrage and women in politics, especially from a history major. So that's really touching, and that's really, really great. Thank you so much. And next, I think we're going to move to MLA Harvinder Sandhu, if you wouldn't mind giving your own introduction.
Thank you, Maddie. Good evening, everyone. I would like to acknowledge that today I'm joining you from the unceded and traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking First Nations, today represented by Esquimalt and Songhees nations, and I thank them for their stewardship of this land. Happy International Women's Day, everyone. I see many familiar faces, and I would like to thank Donna, Barbara, Bev, and all the amazing organizers from Canadian Federation of University Women Vernon Club for giving me this wonderful opportunity to join this panel. I congratulate and extend my appreciations to my co-panelists, Delvir Nahal, Carrie Gers, Teresa Durning-Harker, for their contributions towards our communities. I would like to thank our moderator, Maddie Keating, for your willingness to moderate this event. My interest in politics started by my advocacy to support and uplift the marginalized people. My work in healthcare, inspiration, encouragement from my parents, and my own personal life experiences and challenges at young age inspired me to take a voice at the decision-making table to make many positive changes. I also wanted to pave the way for many women, for a future generation of women facing many barriers to explore their full potential. My mother and my late father instilled in me the values of respect, kindness, hard work, helping others, and being the voice for vulnerable people in our society. My dad always told me, do whatever you want, and the sky is the limit. Don't let others define you what you can and you cannot do. I also believe in a quote that if you want to see the change, then be that change. Nobody's going to come and help you. You have to help yourself. Being a woman in politics, it's not an easy journey, as my co-panelists and many women listening tonight can attest to that. My struggle started early on. When I first ran during 2017 elections from Kelowna Mission, I got bullied on internet. Some people were calling me out for being an immigrant, by saying that I shouldn't have any right to run because I wasn't born here, so on and so forth. Us women have to walk extra mile. It's the reality. When we step in to any role, whether politics or anything, for being a woman of color, I can tell you that we have to walk many extra miles to prove that we are capable of the roles we are taking on or are planning to take on. Unfortunately, due to biases, prejudice, racism, and some people's mindset makes it even pretty much impossible to have that dialogue. I continued facing racism throughout my 3 campaigns in 2017, then 2019, and 2020. The worst forms of racism I faced was during 2019 and 2020 campaigns, where some people said many ignorant things right on my face, and many harsh comments on social media sites like Facebook or on YouTube under my video interviews, attacking my appearance, me being an immigrant, and about my ethnicity, etc. Comments referred that I shouldn't be allowed to run as I'm not I wasn't born here, and comments like "Rest in peace, Canada." Or I quote a couple of comments. There were several. I could say 87 under one interview. They're still there. I quote, "I refuse to vote for someone that was not born in my country. I refuse to vote for someone who has another culture than mine, and I wish to keep my country, my homeland," end quote. There were several other ignorant comments, which the worst part was they were discovered by my daughters. So I do have thick skin, but it really, when your daughters come to you shaking that why people hate so much, that's the most difficult part. I saved screenshot of those comments, and some are still there, not to be bitter about it or get angry about those incidents, because that's not who I am. I saved them to be more stronger and to remind me myself why it is important for me not to quit and to continue pursuing my goals. So no other women and women of color, including myself, have to go through the same. I also wish that people Oh, I also wish those people all the best, and hoping that one day they will be enlightened, and they will overcome from prejudice, ignorance, and hatred for whatever reason they carry it with them. I am so hopeful and reassured that one day women's journey will be easier, and we have came a long way, and we have more good than bad in this world. And I'm so proud to be a Canadian. I always see glass half full. I have noticed that if there are few Canadians who were not being so nice, then there are many other Canadians who condemn racism and any type of discrimination. This is what makes Canada one of the best country to live. As being empowered and strong women, we also need to uplift and support each other, regardless of our political beliefs, ethnicity, or background. And I like to congratulate all the women for your courage, dedication, strength, and sacrifices and resiliency. And today I am very happy and proud to be part of Canada's most diverse caucus in Canadian history, with more women, 53% if I'm not wrong, and more women from many diverse backgrounds and with other sexual orientation, and even members with disability. And I continue to, um, you know, I continue to offer my help to uplift any women, as I mentioned, regardless of what your political beliefs or background is. If there is anything I can do to help to uplift, I am always here. Thank you so much. And once again, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you so much for that really honest and personal and truly disheartening introduction, but it does give us a really great idea of what it is to be a visible minority and a woman in today's political field. So thank you so much for sticking to it and being successful with it. And you're clearly a very great person to have in the political sphere. And thank you so much for being here tonight and for encouraging us all. And for our final introduction, we will move to Councillor Delvire Nahal. If you would please give your introduction.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this great panel and having this great discussion on Women's International Day. So it means a lot. My story is, it's so different and unique from the other contestants. And as I'm listening to their stories, I'm actually going to be sharing some things I've never spoken of that are very personal to me, but I feel like they're very important to share. So sorry, getting a little emotional here. In 1918, 20 women in Canada were granted the federal franchise. It would be another 10 years before the famous five won the person's case victory. And it was not until 1940 that Quebec women won the right to vote in provincial elections. And sadly, it wasn't until 1960 First Nations were allowed to vote without giving up any treaty rights. Just wanted to put that out there. And so my story. My name is Delvire, and I was born in India at the age of 2. I came to Canada with my mom as an immigrant child. And I've pretty much lived in Vernon since. I was in Vancouver for for a few years, and then came back. And even as a child, I remember I had a fascination with politics. And 1984 happened. I was only 8 years old, and I remember sitting with my dad and his friends and listening to the conversations of what's going on in the world, and just being at awe about it, and knowing that there's a lot that goes on in the world. And at that time, Indira Gandhi was a female prime minister, and just seeing some and hearing some of the verbiage that was used towards her at a young age, I could sense the difference in the way the men were treating her. And so growing up and frequently traveling, I learned a lot about the inequalities of women and in different countries. After graduating, I wanted to go to BCIT and pursue a career in broadcast journalism. And I had this dream to work for Al Jazeera and cover wars and politics. But unfortunately, my parents had a different viewpoint. My father at that time believed that what I chose to do would be and should be determined by my future in-laws, that women should just get married, daughters get married, they're kind of a burden. And once they hit a certain age, you marry them off. And if your in-laws want you to work, then you work. If they want allow you to go to school, then you go to school. And I just remember, because both my older sisters didn't have an issue with that was expected of me, but I knew that there was something more for me. And I didn't know what it was. And at the age of 19, I was engaged, and it was 6 months later to a person I didn't even know. And it was 6 months later, I broke off the engagement. And then I still remember you would think I robbed a bank or killed somebody, the way I was treated for a few years. So that's something that I've never really shared with anybody. Let's see, sorry, I'm a little. In 2011, after being diagnosed with cancer, my life and perspective on life really changed. By this time, my parents had evolved a lot. Daughters were no longer considered a burden. And my father just realized that women could stand on their own feet. And it was actually my father that encouraged me to run for council. I recall approaching him and saying, Dad, I would like to run for city council. And he said, like Anne Clark? And I remember as a little girl growing up, always hearing Anne Clark's name. And I knew that she was a female, and she was the mayor of Vernon. And at that time, again, coming from a family where, you know, women kind of took a backseat, that was one thing he always would speak of. It was like he had an admiration for her, but kind of a behind the scenes admiration that nobody else knew. And so he was very, very encouraging. And that actually changed the trajectory of my life running for council. During my cancer journey, I really understood the contradictional worlds that I lived in. While one culture thought my life was over, another believed me to be an inspiration. I remember even after being diagnosed with cancer, I constantly wore a smile on my face to comfort my family and their friends. It was never about me. It was always about them and their feelings. After running for council, I learned a lot. I was very naive. I had no idea what I was in for, but what I did learn was that I had the ability to learn and to then go back and teach my own community a lot about what I'd learned. And with that, I have also inspired many young women to now focus on politics and have conversations with their parents and fight for their rights. And I feel proud when those parents call me and say, hey, this is what my daughter wants to do. What do you think? Because 20 years ago, nobody would have asked what my thoughts were on what their daughter should and shouldn't do. So yeah, here I am in politics. And like I said, the rest is history. So thank you.
That's really fantastic. Thank you so much for being open and sharing your hard times with us. You said you apologize for being emotional, but you know what? It makes such a difference to know that you are passionate and you have these stories and you have these reasons for being here. So it's really fantastic that you sort of overcame what you were supposed to do, and you did what you felt that you wanted to do. So that's really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. If it's all right with everyone, I think we will move on to questions now. I think the only one who didn't give much of a background about the reason for entering politics was Teresa. Teresa, would you give us a little bit of an idea of what motivated you to enter politics and become a constituency assistant?
Well, I think that originally I wasn't interested in politics. I became interested. It kind of evolved as I watched what in my job. I worked kind of in alignment with the city of Vernon, and so I was seeing things, and I knew that I could participate, and I could be a voice for change and for the betterment of the city. I really felt that way, and I felt passionate, and that's why I ran for city council. One of my greatest achievements, I love the experience. The constituency assistant, federal government politics is very intriguing to me. So when that job became available and I was invited to take the job, you know, I really thought about it, and I just felt that excitement about that learning that field, because it's very different than municipal politics. So it just felt like the next best fit, and I haven't regretted that decision for a minute. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really passionate, and I hope that's motivating to some people here who may be thinking about getting into politics. It doesn't have to be from the start. You can always develop that love. So that's great. Next question I will ask Delvier. So you talked a little bit about how your father motivated you to enter politics. Was there any, you have some support, were there others who supported you as well? And were there any reservations from any of your family or friends?
Surprisingly, there was reservations from my mother as another female. She didn't really understand why I wanted to put myself out there. And it was my father and some strong male that were in my life that encouraged me to run. I always knew that I wanted to help people. I've always been an advocate for change. And I just thought, you know, God's given me the second opportunity, and what do I want to do with it? And that's where, you know, when I decided to run for city council, because I feel like on a municipal level, that's where we can make the biggest and most impact on our community. In terms of reservations, again, I found that it was the females that were more like, why? Like, this isn't something that women should be doing, and this and it, like I said, the roles completely reversed years later, where the men were supporting me and some of the women had reservations. I'm the first and only person in my family that is in politics, and even as a child, I've said I've always had an interest in international politics, local politics, and yeah.
That's fantastic. Do you think that those reservations stem from traditional biases or from sort of a woman's fit into a culture?
100%. I think that culturally, we still have a long way to go. But as we start to see more and more women in politics, I think that that mindset is changing, that, you know, it's not a man's world out there, that women can make a difference too. And it's interesting coming from a country like India, where, you know, we had a female prime minister, but there's still that mentality that it's not really a woman's role to be out there in the front lines making those changes, like leave it to the men. But I think for the next generation, as Councillor Garris said, like the glass ceiling is like right there. We're going to shatter it. They don't even think about that. Just within the last 15, 20 years. I mean, Harinder can, I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like our culturally, what women can do has really evolved, and the respect that we're starting to gain within our own community is tenfold.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you are a successful politician, you're in your second term as councillor, do you find that some of those reservations within your family members have changed or surrounding you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the even males that may have had reservations, there's a sense of pride that, you know, that we do have this member of our family that is representing not only our community, but the community of Vernon to the best that she can. So I
Perfect.
definitely can, feel like go from the black sheep, the rebellion, to like a sense of pride. It's like really nice for me.
They're definitely well within their right to be proud of you. So that's fantastic. I'm glad to
Thank
see
you.
that things have turned around for you. I'm going to switch to Harvinder here. You were in the most recent election. So can you tell us a little bit what it was like behind the scenes?
During campaign or after?
During
Uh,
campaign first,
uh,
yeah, when you're campaigning for the MLA position.
Yes, I would share happily, and it was a lot of work from having to manage the family, kids. I have at the time toddler to teenager. My son just turned 5, and still working shift work, and at the same time I did the same during federal election. And federal election, I know our riding is one of the 6 largest ridings, so traveling from Edgewood to Sycamus ran to Esther, Teresa can share that how many forums we had. I think 18 or 19, and prepping for forums. But I don't know, as women, society perceives us not as strong, but we're way stronger than society or some men think we are. And at that time, I believe I was probably only one out of 5 candidates who was working. Some took time off, but I wasn't, due to nature of my job. So here comes 2020 election, and I stepped in again, still working at the hospital full time. I'm managing kids and household and family, and I'm also the primary breadwinner at my home. And at the time, again, at COVID, we were dealing, and I was in the leadership role on a unit where COVID, that was turned into COVID. But I think more life throws us, or we try to take on. We don't take on more than us women. I think we're wise enough, more than we can handle. That's what I've learned over the life. When I was in my 20s and lost my first husband, I had my both daughters, very little. I thought, I'm finished. I can't even survive or live. And there were even thoughts that I wanted to just end my life because it was too painful. And then I think you look at those 2 little girls, they will be women now. They inspired me. I think I looked at inspiration. So a lot of hard work, but then in that hard work, there was that passion, that what I want to achieve. And even though people in Vernon, Monashi, I know at Bollywood Bank too, somebody said, oh, you're with the wrong party. You're never gonna get in. And you'll get laughing emojis on your political page that I'm F word laughing at you because you're never gonna win. I'm just doing what I want to have the voice there, what I believe in, and rest is up to the voters. So again, it's beside that hard work, there's constant reminders that I'm wasting my time, which I thought, no, I wasn't, because I saw that anything is possible. So a lot of work, but the dedication, it's all worth it at the end. So rewarding. And when your family is proud, including my mom and my daughters, because at the time I did have conversation with my daughters. I said, I think I'm taking too much time away from you. Are you okay? Before I submitted my application in 2020, and my older daughter, so did my middle daughter, they said, no, mom, please do it. We get very happy. And they said, even when we Google your name, those little things make them happy. So I thought, okay, I think I need to continue doing so, to pave the way for them as well. So it's all rewarding at the end.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for persevering. That's quite the story. You've climbed quite the hill in your time here. And I can tell you, as a child of a politician, we're serious when we say, go for it. We're so proud of you. Please follow your dreams. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And do you find that the day-to-day work that you do is much different than what you had anticipated?
Actually, it is different in a sense that I'm not doing direct bedside care anymore. I miss that. I miss my colleagues, but it's rewarding and reassuring that when I help people, for the longest time up until January, I didn't have full-time staff, so I was doing CA work and everything. And that's what I mean. Sometimes I wouldn't realize it's 2:00 when I'm responding, because my goal is to reach out to every person who reached out to you and encourage them, no matter no matter, it is their right. And I'm proud of them for believing in the party or political stripe they're holding, because this is a real democratic society. And you need to be there as their servant. They are the taxpayer. So it's very rewarding. And even Saturdays, say if I call, you know, a senior who didn't know how many. So what I enjoyed the most, so I don't want to have too long of answers. So my Sunday call, I had a voicemail. I called this wonderful gentleman, and he had some issues, and I directed him. It was federal, to Teresa's office, and then I said they're very nice, very helpful, and then I said, I will do follow-up call. I gave him resources here. So again, my community nurse woke up in me. I said, okay, were you aware about this resource? He's like, oh no, I didn't know. So then I'm lining him up with the resources that I knew working in community nursing. And then again, did the follow-up call. And I felt like I'm still doing the nursing role. And I think I used that as blessing, that at least I have the knowledge what's available. I know I thought working in hospital gave me broader picture of what's going on, but no, I think when I worked in community for over a year, then you know every corner in Vernon and area that you didn't even know existed. And I learned a lot about the programs that people can go to. So I still use, I just can't help it not to use that nursing lens. It's just 16 years of use to it. So it's the same shift work. I'm working like I'm doing shift work, and I don't mind it. I think my early hardship in my early years, and then my work in very busy settings, as I said, sometimes 16 hours, even when I was 8 months pregnant with my son, you do, if you have to extend, you have to extend shift. And it has helped me a lot. And when you take it as a blessing, you don't get burnt out. So
Well, that's fantastic. It's great.
still serving people, actually. So it's not
Yeah.
much different.
It's great to know that you can combine the two and still help people on the ground. So that's really great. I'm going to move to Councillor Carrie Garris here. I know that you have a family at home as well, and I'm wondering how, and you juggle multiple businesses, I believe. I'm wondering how having a family, having businesses, and being a counselor has affected your life. Do you find that you're fulfilled? Do you find that it's too much, or is it just where you want to be?
I guess it depends on the day. That's probably the best way to put it. When I first ran, not this last election, but the one previous, my children were a little bit younger. They were still in high school. There was a lot more balls in the air, if you will. And this time around is a lot different because, of course, both of my boys are graduated. They're out of high school. They're on their own journeys and their own paths. But definitely the work between the city council aspect, the committees that we're on, the businesses that we do, it is quite a balance. It's trying to find that balance, and I wouldn't say that I've mastered it. What I would have said is that in order to do it well, you have to make sure you schedule yourself appropriately, and you have to schedule yourself not only for your commitments outside, but you also have to commit to yourself as well, where you have to give yourself that space and that time to unwind, or find some sanctuary, if you will, to clear your mind and keep your body and your soul healthy. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm not. I'm sure there's individuals here that can contest that maybe I do a little bit too much. But I think when you enjoy it, when you deep down inside have just a strong passion and a desire to, whether it's my clients in my business, to help them be successful in what they're trying to achieve, or if it's, in my city council role. And, the one thing that I've always held myself to a certain standard is do my research, come prepared. Don't just show up. Anyone can show up. It's being prepared when you do show up so that you can engage in those conversations. And that does take time, and sometimes we can carve out a little extra so that you're even more prepared, and sometimes it's hard to carve out that little extra time. So you might see some late evenings, but really at the end of the day, I look at that time commitment that we're putting forward, and the fact that I truly deep down inside love what I do. I love being committed to the community. Like many of our panelists here, I've I love the community to which I live in and work in, and my kids have been raised in. I've have a profound sense of responsibility to give back. And I think it's because the way that I look at where I was and where I am and how far I've come and what I have to show for it resonates with me to say, I want to be able to give back to the community, to whomever I'm trying to help out, so that they too can have those same benefits. So it's a struggle at times, but it's completely and utterly fulfilling in so many ways. And if you dig a little bit deeper to know that we're one of how many women that sit on council. It's Councillor Nahal and myself that sit there. And, there was three women before us, but we're two. When we look at the other committees that we're on, it is lopsided to a degree, women to men balance. And, I want to give that voice to say that we can give that voice. But my boys are completely and 100% supportive. I think in the very beginning, my husband was a bit apprehensive because I do work a lot, and and he was worried that I wouldn't take the time for myself. But I think I've done an amazing job of balancing those needs, and I know in my limit when I reach that peak where I have to just scale back a little bit and take some time for me. But it's taken years to learn the word no. And I think sometimes as women, we because we want to break those glass ceilings, that sometimes we don't want to say no because there's something for us to prove. But I've realized quite quickly, in order to be successful and to be able to be successful in what you do and to be able to commit to your community, there has to be that striked balance, and you have to learn when to say it's okay to say no for right now. Not no altogether, but just no right now. But no, it's good. It's good. Like I said, it depends on the day that you ask me, but as it stands right now, I've got that balance and I've got it managed.
That's fantastic. That's so important that you bring up time management and balancing your own needs. And I think we're really lucky that we're in a situation in society right now where mental health really is being promoted so much, because burnout is real. A lot of people just spread themselves so thin. And it's so important to know what your basic needs are and make sure that you're meeting those. So thank you for a really nice, well-rounded answer to that one.
You're very welcome.
And Teresa, I'm going to ask you, you ran for Vernon City Council and now you're working in a federal office. So how do you feel on those two different levels? How do you feel that being a woman impacts political positions? So do you find that your constituents are impacted by you being a woman? Do you feel that you're more approachable perhaps?
Honestly, no, I don't. I think whoever's currently answering the door on the other end of the phone, I think it doesn't matter. I think it really comes from, where your heart is. And I think the constituents on, in the city or federally, they know if you care, and they know if you're, bringing 100% that day. And so I don't think it's a gender thing at all. I really truly believe it's them knowing, us having positive, good attitudes, supporting, as Harwinder says, caring for people, and it doesn't matter if you're, male or female. I think that that it's an equal playing field, and it all depends on attitude, not gender, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I think that there's a ton of different people with different mindsets coming from, especially this area. We're both rural and we've got a city as well. So got a whole mix in the bag there. For Councillor Nahal, I know that MLA Sandu mentioned her struggles in her campaign with hateful messages and just general unkindness. Do you feel that being a woman of color has affected your ability to be a politician or any of your aspirations or success?
No, I had the complete opposite experience. Growing up, I faced a lot of racism in, kindergarten and elementary school. I watched my brother constantly being abused, and we were called all sorts of racial names. I always tell a story of how there was a coloring contest for a Canadian stamp, and it said, "Must be Canadian citizen to enter." I mean, you would never see that or hear that now. And I remember coming home crying because I wanted to enter the contest, and I thought I wasn't a Canadian citizen. And my mom's like, "Yes, you are. You became one with me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But high school, out of high school, I never experienced racism, and so to me, it's mind-boggling that. I guess it isn't mind-boggling because I guess I live in a little bit of a la la land, thinking that everybody has evolved and we live in such a great country and we live in such a great community and there isn't racism. But yeah, watching what Harwinder went through, I was very, very surprised because I didn't experience any of that. And I don't know if it's because I'm from the community or maybe if there's a lighter skin. I don't know. I really don't know. So it was very unfortunate to watch her and sad to see that some of the things that she had to go through, but I didn't deal with any of that myself.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. I don't think anyone needs to or deserves to go through that. And I feel that we all stand behind Harvinder, and the loud voices are very loud, but there's very few of them. So we're all very supportive of you. And my next question is going to be for MLA Sandu. And you've talked about your girls before, and you have a husband now. What is your support system like? How do you rely on your support system, and what does it mean to have them for you?
Yes, Mary. My biggest support is my mom. And when mom and my dad were married for 27 plus years and wonderful, healthy relationship. And as I said, when I was hearing Delvir's story, actually, I could understand because when I first came to Canada in 2001, January, and I came in a family I got married to, they were here for generations, but I think they came before 60s or even their grandparents, but we're still presumed, or my daughters are, because they have color even at their high school, which country did you come from? And they'll say, I'm from here. Where were you born though? Prince George and whatnot. So I was shocked actually. I grew up in India and I don't know if my dad had that very open mind, and that the person he grew up without parents. He lost his mom when he was 8, and then he was brought up at maternal home while his dad had to do farming back and raising his other brother. I don't know if my dad's hardships gave him that he's going to give everything to kids, but he was so focused on treating us 2 sisters and brother equally. And I think he saw the inequalities that was happening, not just in India, all around the world, but some country had it more. I can't tell why, but so grateful. But when I came to Canada, I'm thinking, wow, like the family I'm going to, my ex-in-laws, they're going to be even more open. I came, I was told you shouldn't wear that dress, you shouldn't wear sleeveless, you shouldn't. I'm thinking, oh my God. And then when my first husband passed away, everything, loss is one thing you're dealing. So which I don't share often, as we feel vulnerable, but today Delvir shared, and I wouldn't mind sharing. My husband's body was still at the funeral home, and decisions were being made on my behalf that listing my house from Terrace, moving back to Mackenzie, quitting my job, and I'll live in their basement. That's okay. They'll take care of me. They'll provide for me. And here I'm thinking, I'm not raised that way. I worked so hard to get my nursing here, like it was pretty much doing it all over for years. And I thought, would I have to beg for $20 if I need to go grab milk? So when I was still in shock, grieving, my mom So come back to the support. She said, no, that's not right. What conversations are happening? First, let her recover. And then she's not a rag doll that you can pull strings in multiple directions. And she said, let her be. And that was not taken well. That was, you're deemed that not very nice a person if you said no, the decisions are made. So mom stood up. And now when we moved here, it was my mom. If it wasn't for her, and she would always encourage me, even when I had to work again after Sammy passed away, and over time she'll say, "Don't worry." She knew I needed to be on my feet again financially. So now, right now I'm in Victoria. My mom takes care. Like my daughters are 19 and 14 now. My son is youngest. So my husband is also very supportive. My second husband. I shared my dreams with him, and he knew a little bit about my previous journey, and he saw me advocating for people and working for different causes. He said, go for it. And, and then I was thinking since 2012 and 2016. So they're biggest support. And now that he works in healthcare too, he has shift work. So mom is always there full time. So after I lost my dad when he was 52 years old to brain aneurysm, mom was also struggling, so I called her here in Canada, which she helped me when I was pregnant with my second daughter and had to work full-time at the hospital. So it worked out for both of us. My children are her healing remedy, and she's my strength. And so I think if it wasn't for her, overall, I don't know where would we be along with my daughters. So she's biggest support, and I'm not worried here. Like I don't have to worry about the childcare or daycare, like, because there are no daycare still for shift workers either. So kudos to my mom again, other women inspiring women each other. So.
And Maddie, can I just say something on that note? Is that I find that as women, we often look to men for validation or approval. And what I've learned through this journey is that we have to validate and have approval from ourselves. And for me, the biggest inspiration have come from women in this community in Vernon. You look around and you see so many strong women that take lemons and make lemonade, and they're not acknowledged sometimes. I mean, we have such powerful forces to be reckoned with in this community, and every day somebody is inspiring somebody somehow. As I said, as a little girl, my father speaking about Anne Clark was an inspiration to me. I mean, she probably doesn't even know who I am. And even us running, regardless of if we win in our positions or not, we have inspired somebody. And the biggest thing for me is to continue that momentum and inspire other women. We have Amanda Schatzko, who is probably one of the youngest politicians we have in our community on the RDNO board. And it's great to see that. And I often see how the men talk down to her, like the first year. It's almost like she was a child. And it's like, no, she is our equal. She is at par. She doesn't need you to validate her. And so I think that as women, we need to continue to support each other. And there's a sisterhood, and that strength that comes from the sisterhood, it's unreal. And no man can do that for you. And it also comes with confidence within ourselves. We know that we're doing what's best for us and what's best for our community, and we have to be confident in our decisions, and then have a good circle of women to support that decision.
Great point. I would like to add quickly, for 12 years, Maddie, as I talked about the family I came in, nothing personal, like great family or everything, but I know every family have different types of thinking and how they implement those rules. And people sometimes judge cultures, and I don't believe in. I said there's culture, there's family culture. In every ethnicity, everybody have different point of view. So when I learned, I always said yes. And as Kari said, I had to work to say no. I still struggle at times because to me, I don't want to be rude. But I forgot my existence for 12 years. I was brought up very empowered. I forgot. I lived what they said, always trying to make people happy. And if I listen, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't even be running for BCNU positions because, as I said, there were certain expectations and rules from that family that I was married into. And it's just a lot of things are unspoken about. And then I now learn that I don't need any validation or male or husband. Like, respect is one thing, love is one thing. Then when you see that resistance or insecurity is there, somehow it is still there among men. But I wouldn't say all. And then I learned that you pursue, and it took me 12 years. And in those 12 years, I didn't know who I was. I forgot my identity. So it took a while to explore it back.
Well, I'm really glad you found it because you're obviously doing a ton of great work. So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Councillor Nahal, because we just spoke about this. It's often that women are described as aggressive or standoffish when they speak their mind, whereas men are seen as assertive or bold. So what do you do, or do you have any advice to combat this?
Continue to speak your truth. It doesn't matter what people think. I think when it comes from a place of purity and you're doing what you believe in, it shouldn't matter what people think. I personally am not, I am a little bit reserved in confidence sometimes. And actually Councillor Garris has been a huge inspiration for me to start to speak my truth. And in this council, I've really found a voice that I didn't feel I had the last council, being new, two powerful women on council. And I really didn't say a lot. And I also saw how Councillor Cunningham at that time was treated because she was so strong and opinionated. And I think it scared me to put myself in that position because I saw like the hard work she did, but I also felt like because she was a female, she was treated a certain way. And yes, you're right. When a man does it, it's okay. But if a female is it's not even being assertive, it's holding your ground and speaking what you believe in. It was a different they were considered a different way. But one thing I did learn from Councillor Garris is always speak your truth. Don't be afraid to say what you have to say. And you do have to develop thick skin because otherwise you will get eaten alive in this political forum. I read a statistic somewhere, I think today, that only 18% of 18% of women that are in mayoral roles, and it's 28% women that are in council roles. Like, that is so small. And so why is that? Is it because we're afraid of the way we're going to get treated by other men, or but yeah, I'm not a very aggressive person. I shy away a lot, but I'm learning to now wear my big boy shoes, right? So and say I'm ready for this conversation. But I think watching how Juliette was treated I did shy away from putting myself in that position because I saw how not only the media but other counselors treated her, and it was unfair because she believed in what she believed in, and she was no holds bar. And so you got to respect that about her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just remember that men have no more right to speak than you do. So speak what you need to say. I did mean to mention earlier too, Anne Clark is on this call, so she definitely knows.
No way.
And she's just said in the chat that I do know who you are. You are doing a good job. I'm thrilled to have made a difference in your trajectory.
Oh, wow. Thank you. And I was just going to say, even culturally, don't want to keep going back to that culture, but I grew up with 4 sisters and a brother, and our brother could do no wrong in our family. Like, he could get away with murder. I remember even as a young kid, my brother would do something and my dad would yell at us. Indirectly, he'd be yelling at him, but it would go through us, and we never understood why we were getting in trouble for something he did. So, again, being in that culturally being brought up a certain way and saying that you don't speak your mind, you act a certain way, it does impact how you are the rest of your life. And so learning to find that voice, and then again, it came from people like Carrie, and I am so appreciative of that. And again, so many great women in our community. I wish I could sit here and highlight every single one. And like, we're notorious. Give us lemons and we'll give you lemonade, and the best lemonade. So yeah, I know I'm feeling really blessed.
Well, that's fantastic. You're making the tastiest lemonade out of what life has given you. And so I'm going to ask a question from the audience now. This one's open to general panelists, so please, if you feel that you have an answer right away, please let me know. The question is, do you find a difference in the way women approach and conduct politics as opposed to men? Go ahead, Councillor Garris.
That is probably one of the best questions to ask. And I think the reality is there is a very big difference between how men and women view politics. And it's not a good or a bad thing. I think that's really important for us to recognize. We just have a different approach. And I think you've actually kind of alluded to it already in your past questioning with regards to just how we are viewed in politics as a whole. So one of the things that I've realized on our end is that we do come with a little bit more compassion, empathy. At least I know at our council table, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Councillor Nahal, but we really are truly vested in what it is that we are doing. And so for myself, when we look at policy or policy changes, I try to look at the broader picture. It's throw a stone and see how those ripples play out, and how those ripples can influence or change the landscape, whether it be for the good or, not so good. And I find for myself that, I've said it before, we have to stand on principle. It's just fundamentally, if we're saying it over here, we can't simply backtrack and do something different over here. That everything we do has to be on principle. On approach. And I find at times that sometimes we can be wishy-washy, if that's even a word. It's a silly word, but it's that flipping flop back and forth nature that we sometimes have, because I don't think we fundamentally throw that stone and watch those ripples and try to, predict what those outcomes are going to be. And I know for myself, when I look at that, I try my best to try to foresee what that ripple is going to do and how it's going to impact everyone. Because it will impact everyone. It'll impact some greater than others. And I think we have a due diligence and a responsibility to at least foresee that as best as we can, which requires us to come prepared as much as possible. So when I look at myself, I have an education over on this area, and I might have a work experience or work education over here, but I don't know everything. And so we really have to look at what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And we really do need to seek out external sources of information to ensure that we have a profound understanding of what it is that we're going to do. But I do think we look at politics very differently. And it's not because one is better than the other. It's just, we are uniquely who we are. And as women, I think we have this innate ability that we're nurturers. Some women are much stronger than others. Some women, have a much louder voice than others. But I think when we break it down to just the fundamental basics, women in general are nurturers. We care. And that's not a bad thing. I think that's what makes us so amazing at our role, because we have that nurturing element to our behavior, and everything that we do has a little bit of that carryover. Whereas men aren't typically nurturers, men are typically in that competitive sense, and they've been raised right from childhood to be the top of the line, and they don't necessarily have that caregiving aspect to us. And so I think that when we're looking for the differences are just characteristically, men are different than women are different than men. It's not bad, it's not good, but it's how we can bring all those elements in to make just a wonderful, balanced approach to everything we do. And, you know, but like Councillor Nahal said, sexism is alive and well. It is there. Not all men. I think it's a handful where we fight those battles every day to be talked over, overlooked, being categorized as too aggressive, or too domineering, or too much of something. And I think it's because we're struggling to just simply be heard. We just want to be heard because we have something to say. So yeah, you know, not a bad thing, not a good thing, but those are the barriers that I would love to see broken. I would love to be able to sit on a committee and know that I will be seen as an equal with my own unique characteristics and something that I have to offer that is different from somebody else, and not be overlooked, talked over, or being like it's what I have to say has no relevance or no importance, because everything that someone has to say has relevance and has importance. That's why we were elected. At least that's my take on it. But I will open that up to any other panelists here to add their own take on that.
Please go ahead, Harvinder.
Yes, I would add to what Councillor Gare said. I was thinking in my head too, that women, they do bring, again, I'm not saying one is better than the other, men versus women, but it's just the way we are nurturing, and we bring mind, heart and mind. And when we're shaping policy, say at provincial level, they're discussing childcare. Women does have that understanding. And then I'm thinking how it's going to affect, or any decision making, whether it's regarding gender equality, it helps. And we have broader lens. And women are, sorry, no offense to men, more adaptable. And I don't know any women in politics. Again, I could be wrong. Maybe that's how I see things. Ego is not issue, not saying all men are egoistic, but unfortunately I think the way they're brought up, the tough man, like, or some people used to say, things are changing now, men don't cry. However, they're human being, and yes, they get emotional too, but we're more adaptable. Ego is not an issue. We're always willing to work, even, collaboratively, even coming together to a consensus without having any, because I think a lot of, there are many women politicians I take my inspiration from. Then you read about them. I think we think it's not about us. Whatever we're doing, it's about people who elected us. And I don't think that we ever forget that. And we are constantly reminding ourselves that gratitude. And when you come out to serve people from that gratitude, that I'm sitting here because of everybody who supported me, or even, people who are in the community now, it is for them. So we don't think, we think differently. I don't know why, the way we're created, or the way we're brought up, or the way we learn to adapt, the way system, society treated us. I don't know. Again, all of us, it was fascinating to hear from other three panelists, their stories, and very inspired. I found more inspiration from Teresa, Carrie, and Delvir's stories. And it gave me goosebumps. Like, we all have these fascinating experiences. And that's what women are. Like, we're this mosaic of adaptability, nurturing, caring, who brings this mind, not just mind. Men more tend to think, again, not generalizing, but majority from the mind. But there are wonderful male leaders too, who have made many good changes. So it's just different. I don't know if it's the way we were brought up. So yeah, and I think both can complement each other. Both elected officials, we can complement. Even today in my earlier statement at the session, I gave kudos to men who respect women, because not all men are evil, and not all men are egoistic or abusers. There are more, as I said, they're always, whether it comes to racism or inequality, they're always handful. there's more broader good. So that's the difference, I guess. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with absolutely everything that you said. There are differences, but they're not, neither one is better than the other. Teresa, may I ask you this question as well, considering that you work for a male MP? How do you find that you would deal with things versus how MP Arnold deals with issues?
I can honestly say MP Arnold is more analytical than me. I'm big picture, and he absolutely thinks things out more than maybe I would. That's often a good thing, I think, and we got to give credit to his experience. He's been around the block a while, so a great thing for me to be watching. But yeah, I think that's that. I'm appreciating actually working for a male. That's fairly new for me. It's been many years since I had a boss or a manager that was a male, and so it's good. And again, he's got some traits, and I think he always appreciates. You know, he works with women at the office, and he always appreciates what we're bringing to the table, and he considers that, and I appreciate that too, because I do feel heard. And again, back to my introduction and my speech, I have to have a voice to feel, that's my validation, is to be able to have a voice and be heard. And so I'm grateful. So not only am I learning, but I get to try out my voice on MP Arnold, and I'm sure he appreciates it most days. So yeah.
Yeah, that mirrors very much what Emily Sandu was saying, with the men are very analytical and the women are very big picture.
I think the balance when it comes to, policy and legislation and all those things, I think that it's essential for that, difference in voice to be at the table to come out with the very best outcome for the people. And that's never a bad thing, because at the end of the day, that is the job, is to, have good outcomes that are going to benefit the people, because, we all work for the people. So that's my take on it. And I'm fortunate to be able to give my 2 cents, and it's heard. So yeah, I'm not just saying that because he's listening or something either, just so you guys know.
Maddie, I would like to add, I think oftentimes we forget that those male politicians, they also have women at their home and who are constantly supporting and guiding them. And it's not fair to say that they totally don't ignore that, because whether daughters, nieces, and you would hear them. Of course, they're also thinking. So there is it's a great compliment. Well, women and men politicians working side by side, and taking the best from each. So again, they do have most of them women, whether it's their spouse, to kind of guide them, or maybe at the end you do wind down at the day like, oh yeah, this is what I'm thinking, this was the discussion. So there's that guidance is present even for male politicians. So, and vice versa.
I think that role, that support role that you're referring to, is imperative. And I can speak, from what I see, it's imperative to have that good support, and have a good partner that's helping you through that, whatever the day looks like. So yeah, absolutely, good balance.
I think there's a saying that goes, behind every king is a queen. So that, yeah, that fits pretty well. I'm going to ask another audience question. This one is from Audrey Pope. I'm going to direct it at Teresa first, because the question is, how do you see using teams of other people to help you achieve your goals? Now, because you are a team in yourself for MP Arnold, do you find that, how effective do you find it is to be in a team to get goals met?
Thank you, Audrey, for the question. I think it's imperative. And like I referred to in the last question, was if you don't have a different dynamic given feedback, you're going to come out with not an optimal outcome. And in our office and our staff in Ottawa as well, there's a lot of feedback coming in on on every decision, or when there's constituency issues or a constituent issue. Often we all participate in finding the solutions, and I think it's a necessity and it's a requirement, because if you have one individual making all the decisions without working as part of a team in a situation like that, I mean, everybody has their areas of expertise on our team, and every single person is imperative to the success of the people getting their needs met. So yeah, I think teams are essential, and I think that using your team and asking for the support of your team is a great quality to be able to do that, and yeah, important.
One quick question as well. Thank you for that answer. That's great. Of course, we like to see everyone work together. Teamwork makes the dream work. What does your ribbon represent? This is a question from the audience.
The purple ribbon. I asked my husband to get me a purple ribbon today because I didn't have a dark purple shirt, and it's just me celebrating International Women's Day.
Fantastic. That's great.
With my Canada pin, because I work for the federal government.
A necessity. Councillor Nahal, here is a question from the audience that is directed at you. You mentioned that the young woman who has recently been elected to the RDNO has been viewed by some as young and immature. What do you say to the men who say that? What's a good comeback for that?
I didn't say immature. She is definitely quite young. I'm not sure. I think she's in her early 30s, if I'm correct, if she's even that old. But I think that over the years she has commanded respect. Her patience and her ability to the way I've seen her speak at the regional table. She is very patient, and it's not confrontational. She, even when not given respect, she will always speak with respect. And I think that's a great way to earn respect, because, like they say, it's kindness, killing hate with kindness. And so I think they misjudged her, because it's always been a bit of an old club on that table, and to all of a sudden see a young female in that role, it was not something that they were used to. And I saw, it was like director this, director that, when they spoke to their male colleagues, but when they would speak to her, it was Amanda. And I think every female on that table noticed it. And I don't even think that they were aware that they were doing that. And that's just, again, it's something that needed to be brought to their attention, that no, this person, even if she's young, she's still a director. She's at par with you. But I think that, like I said, kudos to her for, hanging in there and proving who she is, and she's a force to be reckoned with, and with patience and with kindness. And again, something that Harwinder said is that we as female politicians, we tend not to lead with our egos, and men do that. And so sometimes you just have to have that patience and let them evolve themselves and see. And going forth, I think she's paved the way for other young women to be on that table, and they will see them in a different light, because Amanda has paved that way for them.
That's fantastic. And for any of the good old boys who tend to make those comments, what is something, I mean, those comments aren't necessarily made to young men. What's the difference there? Why do you think that why do you think that they think that it's appropriate to say those sorts of things?
Well, again, I think it goes back to ageism. If you look at this term, there's a lot of females on that table. So I've definitely seen there's not as much hostility as there was last term. People would erupt in shouting matches, and it was the egos. And you can see with more females on that table that the way we speak to each other has really toned down. There's more conversation than yelling matches. And again, I think that they're just not used to seeing a young female in that role. And some of these men, they're in their 60s and 70s, and they're just not used to seeing a 25, 30-year-old being being in that position. So I don't even think it's intentional. They just don't know. And so it took a few years for them to go from Amanda to Director Schatzko, you know, and it was like constantly having to remind them that if you can speak to everyone else and we actually, I remember her telling me during the election campaign, even the moderator was doing that. He would say, director this, and then Amanda. And again, I don't think it's intentional. It's just something that they're conditioned to do. And so that is something that we have to constantly remind them that, hey, we're equal on this board. We're all equal. We've all been elected into these positions. And it's sad that we still have to do that in 2021, but that's the reality. We're not where we need to be yet, but we're getting there. I think we're getting there. And the key is to continue to inspire each other because men think that women are emotional and they're like a certain way, but we're beyond that. So like I said, Carrie and I, we're the only two females on that on council in Vernon, and I think we're less emotional than some of the men can be. And so again, you command that respect by giving respect and patience.
So I suppose the best retort to any of those comments is to just get used to it. Here we come.
Yeah, exactly. And the more, excuse me, the more females they'll see in that role, the more they will realize that, yeah, because again, for years and years and years, it's been an old boys club on that table.
Yeah. Did anyone have any remarks they wanted to get out before I pass it to the creator of this event, Barbara Vansickle? Yes, sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, just to kind of piggyback after what Councillor Nahal was saying, I think in general, most men are unaware. They're simply just unaware of their actions. And I think with time, that's going to change, but I think it requires us to speak out about it, to put it into the forefront, to acknowledge it and get them to acknowledge it as well. It's the only way that we're really going to make a real big difference and an impact. And I remember having a conversation with one of those RDNO directors, and I did say, hey, it's the old boys club. And he was somewhat offended by it. But, the reality is it is true. And a lot of them have been in those roles for a very long time, that it is just entrenched and well ingrained into their psyche. It's just, they're unknowingly going through life, doing these actions, and they've never had someone say, whoa, that's not acceptable. And, that's not appreciated. And, oh, did you know that this is what you're doing? And I think when you bring it to their attention, first it's like, I don't do that. Well, here's the camera. Luckily for a lot of these committees, they're recorded now because they're all on Zoom. So rewind it and see for yourself. And I think when you take the time to acknowledge what has actually been going on, and get them to be self-aware, change comes. And I mean, I've seen it with Director Schatzko. We've seen it with ourselves, and I think it's just a matter of us. We can't sit idle. We can't just assume that time will heal these challenges that we're seeking. We have to use our voice, but we have to use it in a very productive way that isn't undermining the system, because that's also really important for us to acknowledge as well, that for any sort of growth, whether it's growth in politics, whether it's, diversity and women's rights, we need to be that voice. We need to go back 100 years to the women's suffragist movement, and we need to reread what they said and how they said it, and the challenges that they had, and we have to bring it back into the 21st century, and we need to have that same voice, and we need to go up against the barriers that we see, and we need to constantly remind them that is simply just not acceptable. but do it in a good, positive way where we're not demeaning them simply because they just don't know. So that's my take. And then just to kind of, finish off, obviously, politics is not for everyone. But for any woman or young girl who looks towards, wanting to have a fulfilling career and wants to instill change, politics is a great avenue to do that. You do have to have some thick skin. I know we say that often, and I think it's because we are in the forefront. Social media is a really big thing right now. People love to sit behind their keyboards and play out what they're feeling in words, and words matter. But that would be my one thing for, young women to say, that's okay. You're not going to change those people's viewpoints, but what people say about you is not a definition of who you are. It's a definition of who they are. And we got to stay true to ourselves. We got to stay true to the mission of what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And so fundamentally, we can make those changes. So I know Teresa and Delvire want to say something, so I'll hand it off to them.
Sure. I think we'll go to Teresa first.
I just want to, in closing, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight to all the women that put this together. I appreciate it. I just want to remind everybody that there really is nothing more terrifying than putting your name on a ballot, and that for all the individuals, men and women that are listening, please continue to support women needing it. Yeah, I read a legislative study that was done in 2019 called Elect Her, and it was a roadmap to recruiting women to politics, and very, very important to everybody at a federal level, provincial, and I'm sure municipal, for women to be more heavily involved. And it's our job to really support women and young women to have the courage to be able to put their name on the ballot. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And Councillor Nahal, did you want to say a closing remark as well?
Yeah, in closing, I just want to thank everybody for being a part of this panel. And I just want to remind every single woman that's on this panel tonight and who is listening has a story to tell. And we're all heroes in some way, shape, or form. And we inspire somebody every single day. And we have to remember that nobody is better than us. Nobody is below us. And we all have a story to tell. And I would love to hear every single person that's attending today to hear their story. And it's really humbling to be here right now and to be a part of this conversation. I've been inspired. I've learned a lot, and Clark is on this call. and so again, thank you for having me be a part of this conversation. Thank you.
That's really fantastic. Thank you so much. We're more than privileged to have all of you here, that you've taken time out of your busy, busy lives to be here and to answer some really pressing questions and to just hear about where you came from and who you are as a person. And I think we're all really, really privileged to have you representing us. So thank you so much. And that'll be all for me tonight. I'm going to pass it off to Barbara Van Sickle. Thank you so kindly, ladies. It has been a pleasure, and happy Women's Day to you.
Well, that wraps up our evening. We could go on for a long, long time, but you women have had a full day, and we're so grateful on behalf of CFUW, the panelists and the moderator. It has been a very informative evening. This idea for our theme came from last year's International Women's Day event, which showed women can flourish in male-dominated fields if given the opportunities. Too many women and girls, as have been shown by some of the panelists, have been discouraged by parents, society, guidance counselors, that was me included, that, hey, we're told that that's not a suitable job for a woman. With this year's United Nations theme, challenging women to be leaders, CFUW chose to narrow the field, as you've seen, to women as political leaders, because as Bev pointed out, generation equality in politics is unhealthy in balance. Very definitely true in a lot of the countries. Although Canada has made progress, we can't be complacent as more work is needed. Not only in getting more women in numbers, but also giving women influential positions. It's been a fine demonstration by Harwinder, Delvier, Carrie, and Teresa. Their demonstration is just a start to how critical interests and skillful tactics of women create a much truer, more powerful democracy that represents society in large. Otherwise, it's like a bird trying to fly with just one wing. We have seen the women here who are very actively engaged in trying to make their communities better, for which we are very grateful. To each of them on the panel, in appreciation for all their time and effort, we will be sending a copy of CFUW Vernon's book, Our Stories, Vignettes from Our Lives. Now that we have learned a bit about your lives, very kindly shared, thank you for that, you'll have an opportunity to peek into fascinating tales of some of our club's members' lives. Maddie, we are so very grateful to you for volunteering to spend even more of your day Zooming in a challenging task of moderating. We wish you well in your studies. I suspect that we're going to see you in a leadership capacity in the future. Now that we have been inspired by these female leaders, I feel it's our responsibility to help accelerate this move to greater parity. I may be the spark that initiated the idea, but would the spark have been snuffed out without the tinder and kindling represented by the skillful assistance of the CFUW Vernon executive? It just wouldn't have happened without you, Donna, Tom Ilvanovich, Bev Weidman, Karen Truesdale, and Joanne Delamater. There's no point in making a blaze like we have without attracting the audience. Your role is vital. Ideally, this won't be a one-day session, but have 365-day impact. Let's be aware of the messages that we as individuals and society as a whole present as gender expectations. Let's train people dealing with children and youth to be mindful of gender biases. Let's advocate for media stereotyping and provide ideal role models, such as what we have here. Civic leadership and political training would supply confidence in such roles that many lack, especially females. Let's work to ensure a political environment that's free of discrimination and violence. Let's not let gender bias hinder us in our voting choice. Our collective power is immeasurable. So thank you so much for your interest and your involvement. And it'll be a safe evening, I think, for all of us. We don't have far to go.
Good night, all. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much. And I would like to say you're stronger than you think you are. And Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this panel. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, it's been just so inspiring. Learned a lot from you gals. Mm.
Thank you.
They really
Thank you.
are inspiring. It gives me hope for the future.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
while many people, quite a number of people have signed off, I do want to, while you're still there, read off some of the comments that came in via chat. Barbara Bryant, I think it is important, and I have voted for all 4 of you and will again. Amanda says, thank you for sharing your stories this evening. It is an honor to serve in politics alongside each of you. Val Trevis, many thanks, ladies. You are all very inspiring. Caitlin Clow, thank you all for sharing your stories. You're all truly inspiring. We are lucky to have you on our side. Julia Berardinucci, thank you, speakers, so much for your generous honesty and inspiring stories, and to the dedicated organizers of this evening. So again, support Barb in her comments. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll cross paths more than once in the future. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Thank you, ladies.
You're welcome.